So that is running.
Okay.
Because it starts going down.
Yeah, let's take it back to the top, man.
Adrian's going to do a little check on the sound on the thing that we're actually recording this time. So
yeah,
this is what happens when you record podcasts. You know, sometimes you don't check everything, and you've just done gold. We've done a half an hour of gold, but we're going to have to try and give you some gold and not silver this time. So we're going to talk all things summer transfers, Premier League. We can't talk about everyone because there's too many teams, there's too many players, there's too much transfer movement, but we've picked out some of the things that we think are worth talking about, both from personal point of view and what we think you might find interesting. So kicking off, we've got some teams that have spent massive amounts of money, but the biggest team that has spent the biggest amount of money is Liverpool. Liverpool have spent approximately £170 million. They've made some real marquee signings. I mean, that's some serious intent they've put out there in terms of who they've bought. But more so from, I think they've gone and bought players that are the positions they need to strengthen and to push them on to possibly go and win that Premier League. They certainly feels like they're the missing ingredient. So, Liverpool, massive amount of money, but they look like the right kind of players. I mean, is that the sort of feeling for the Liverpool fans?
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's been forgotten to a degree, Naby Keita, we signed him actually in January last year. So he's come in now, but the deal was done in January. So does he count as this summer? I'm not sure. Big signing. Yeah. He will push the midfielders around him to perform better. Wijnaldum's always been a player of immense quality, but he just hasn't quite replicated that Newcastle season where he scored, I think, up to 12 to 15 goals, playing in a deeper role. So I think he's going to be asked to... He's asking himself to produce more because he wants to stay in the side. He was one of our star players last year, Giorgio Wijnaldum. So I think he's going to... The signing of Naby Keita is really going to push others to perform to a higher level. Fabinho is going to ask questions of Henderson, who, has always sort of flattered to deceive to a degree.
But I think what I like about what Klopp's done is that he's bought players that... I don't think he's bought players to sit on the bench. Last season or when he bought Chamberlain, it's like he's buying his players and saying, "Look, I want you to be in the first 11, but we have only 11 spots, so naturally not everyone can be in it." But he seems to be buying players that he's buying big, reputation players, big marquee signings, but he can't squeeze them all in. But I like the fact that he's doing that. So there is lots of competition, but these aren't second-tier players. These are players that technically in their own right should probably start based on their quality. So I like the fact that he's done that. I think that's going to be a difficult juggling act to keep them all happy. But, as a neutral, I think they might have just, if this season has got to be the season that they go and challenge for the Premier League, it's definitely their strongest squad under Klopp. He's spent, since he's been at the club, a lot of money as a manager. So he's certainly been supported by the board. So I think they're going to be, at the same time the pressure's on for Liverpool, but you've got to be excited. Shaqiri, what a player! I mean, opening overhead goal kick, overhead kick against United, that has to excite the Liverpool fans.
I think as a Liverpool fan, I think I speak for many. When he first signed, I wasn't absolutely overwhelmed by him, but then I think I've been bought into a lot of the rhetoric that's been going around about him not being so good and being somewhat tempestuous and a little bit of an irritant around the club, which is ridiculous because he just seems to smile all the time and he seems to have a lot of fun with it. I watched one of the sort of like introduction to the club sort of celebrations that they do.
Was it the LFC propaganda channel? No,
he's singing along, having such fun with new teammates. He just seems like a bag of joy. And on the pitch, he has a presence. He's a strong player mentally. He's been through it. Adds to the squad. I don't want to start moonwalking just yet, but Daniel Sturridge looks like he's found his mojo again. Can he stay fit is the biggest prayer. If you have a smiling, happy Daniel Sturridge, I think you can do things with a player like that coming off the bench. He's a literal match winner.
Yeah, the goalkeeper. £69 million. My question about the goalkeeper is, it's like I like the fact that he I think he's paid over the odds. That's not what he's worth. He's no way worth that money. I don't think there's many goalkeepers that probably that are worth that money. There probably are some. I think De Gea at United is probably one of them. I don't think he was. He certainly wasn't on anyone's radar. And it was a genuine surprise, I'm pretty sure, to Liverpool fans that they spent this money on him. However, if he, like with Van Dijk, Van Dijk 70 million, I think it was, at the time they needed a centre-back and they went and got a fantastic centre-back. And he came in and performed to a reasonable level. I don't think Van Dijk was amazing, and I think Liverpool fans may agree or not, but I don't think as a neutral he was amazing, but we didn't talk about his fee after 6 months, which meant he must have done reasonably well. And I think if the keeper comes in, if Alisson comes in and does something similar to what Van Dijk did, in terms of he's solid, he puts in reasonable performances, we probably won't be talking about his transfer fee. But equally, you look at the likes of people like Pogba, went for £100 million, everyone's expecting him to be the best midfielder in the world. And what happens when you get signed for £70 million, you're a goalkeeper, everyone's expecting you to be the best goalkeeper in the world. So if we don't see the best goalkeeper in the world, the piranhas are going to be out, wanting to bite him and chew him up, and certainly the papers will. So I just hope for him that he can perform. But like I said, it's a position they need to strengthen. They have, on paper, they've massively strengthened. And I think that, if I was a Liverpool fan, I would be thinking this is the season. But is it the season? What happens if it's not? It's one of those,
Van Dijk first. Without Van Dijk, we do not make it to the Champions League final. Let's get that straight. That's not going to happen. We probably don't get in the top 4 neither, because we just have this settled back 4 that he has created. Lovren levels have gone well up in Van Dijk's company. Surprise, surprise, Robinson has a flyer. Trent Alexander emerges. And this is born out of this guy's just sheer knowingness of how to play the position. And he's got everyone just cool, calm, and it's collective, brilliance.
He's got to have had a positive impact.
He's been incredible, Des. There's no two ways about it. And I believe the goalkeeper that comes in, Alisson, who's coming, has this sort of like simple, very methodical mindset, which is uncomplicated. And I think the problem with our previous goalkeepers, they haven't really been mentally settled. They always seem to be a bit jittery in some respect. Well, we've got a keeper who's calm and collective, and I think that's all you can ask for from your goalkeeper. He sets the tone, behind, in front of him, so everyone has a bit more assurance about him. The time will tell and see how good he is.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised. Clubs like Liverpool haven't wanted to sign someone like Schmeichel from Leicester. I think he's a top goalie. He's proven in the Premier League. I think bringing a goalkeeper, especially a goalkeeper from a completely different, Brazilian goalkeeper.
I don't think that's such a thing anymore.
Not. But just Brazilian goalkeeper playing in Italy. I'm questioning the transition, how easy that's going to be for him. Brazilians have got a bad past in the Premier League. In fact, if we've signed 10 Brazilian players, 9 of them probably haven't done well. So I'm not saying that means he won't, but I'm just saying it's hard for the Brazilian players sometimes to come to the Premier League, regardless of their position. I think he's definitely. I think it's a big investment for someone that hasn't proven himself, for me, at the level that maybe Liverpool need, and it's a lot of money. I just think that the question marks are out there. But if he does what everyone thinks he will do, certainly what Liverpool fans are expecting him to do, then it's going to be an absolute great signing. But as a neutral, I'm questioning it. But I'm just the armchair fan, so we get to question it. Every big signing that's made has to be. You do question its value.
Agreed.
But I think so. Liverpool, just summary. Liverpool, they've got to win the Premier League. Are they going to win the Premier League?
We're going to challenge. We're definitely going to challenge.
But you've spent £170 million. You were challenged. You second last year. You've spent £170 million. You've bought 3 massive signings, 3 big players. Surely.
In fact, let's look at those signings just very briefly. Naby Keita, he is a quality player, but he wasn't on the lips of a lot of fans.
Yeah, no, maybe
Fabinho, again, another player, Monaco, 35 million, quite, a snip in this day and age for a midfielder when you talk about Pogba going for what he did. Again, not on the lips and tips of everybody, right? And even the goalkeeper to an extent. Like, he's a really good goalkeeper, but he wasn't talked about at the beginning of last year. So he's almost emerged last year, and I'll agree what you say about, I disagree what you say about the fee. I think everybody knew the fee was going to be high because, again, he had been making waves in the Italian league, and because of the Mohamed Salah sale last year, when we got him for relatively cheap, under 40 million, I think that, again, Roma were going to make sure that they got every penny they could out of us, and they knew how much we needed to keep up, especially after the Champions League game. So I think the fee is just a sum total of all those variables.
Well, you're not going to hear it from a Liverpool fan, but if Liverpool don't win the Premier League, I think Jurgen Klopp's in trouble. And I think he might find his support at the club wanes if they don't have a big season. Certainly, if they don't come in the top two, I think he's going to be massively under pressure. But that's based on the amount of money he's spent since he's come to the club.
Let me add that, again, performance based. If we replicate the performance from last year again, Liverpool fans can't say too much. We just can't, because we would have been given, Salah hits the sort of figures he did on top of what we've got. We're going to be all right.
Yeah, but it's the media that start the witch hunt, and trust me, being at the top of the league table and spending for the Premier League, which means you're at the top of the chopping block. I agree. When out of all the teams who don't start performing, you're the first one they're going to kind of want to kick. But anyway, I mean, moving on, when we've got other teams interesting, not one of the big teams. Fulham, £102 million, West Ham, £96 million. I mean, I put those two teams together, both London clubs. Being in London, we want to see the London clubs do well. We're obviously biased because we're from London, but massive investment for those teams. I mean, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, if those teams don't perform, or they end up in a relegation situation, or they end up struggling, fighting for Premier League survival, that level of investment can put those kind of clubs in ruin. We've seen it before. We've seen it with other clubs, in Portsmouth in the past. Massive investments into that first team. Silly money was being spent, to try and invest in the Premier League at a time when you thought they were going to kick on to push on for maybe even European places. All of a sudden they're in a relegation fight, and they've just spent £50 million. At the time, is the equivalent to the £100 million that the likes of West Ham have spent. So as soon as if West Ham starts finding themselves in a relegation fight, this club's in trouble. Surely.
I agree. I mean, I think teams have learnt from the past. The Portsmouth scenario that you referred to. I think teams now have contingency plans in place for such scenarios as relegation. But I don't believe that either club will be involved in it. I believe that Fulham are riding the crest of a wave of last season's promotion. I feel like they've got a young, exuberant team who've added, real quality to what they've already have. And I feel like they're going to really sort of like excite the Premier League, give it the Premier League a real freshness that we perhaps missed with the likes of some of the teams that got relegated, to be fair. So I think Fulham are going to be a bright spot. West Ham, I think that new stadium move has been a negative for the most part, but I feel like the players they've brought in are really going to give the fans something to go on. A lot will depend on Manuel Pellegrini at West Ham really, adapting again to the Premier League at this stage with West Ham, and obviously the Fulham manager, Jokanovic, first season in the Premier League, is he going to be positive? I think he will be, and that makes for a good show.
Yeah, I mean, Pellegrini, Premier League winning manager. I mean, you've got to be, is he the best summer signing for West Ham out of all the players? Because he has got pedigree. Surely they've got to be excited to have a top manager. And I mean, we've certainly seen the benefit of having a top manager in the transfer window, because we've seen some of the players he's brought in. I don't think some of those players would have gone to West Ham if he wasn't there.
Absolutely, and I think he's got a good eye for players as well. I think like you said, I mean, a lot of those players, look at him and say, "Oh, actually, you know what? He's won this and he's won that." and he knows the Premier League, and I think
I want to play for him.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pull with him.
It's certainly interesting times for West Ham. I mean, very interesting times for them. But you can't. I mean, I don't support the club, so I'm sure if you're a fan, you're excited because the team have finally spent money. I mean, the board have not invested in that team for such a long time, to that extent. You know, West Ham fans there's been protests. There's been, last season we saw horrible scenes at stadiums.
Real unrest.
Fans, with the owners. So, they can't complain now. This is some serious investment. This is obviously they want the results, but they can't say that they've not backed the manager. So I think they've got to be excited. I'm half worried about them because I think if they don't produce and they're into that dogfight, they're going to. You start seeing clubs can get ruined. And it takes years to get back. So I'd be a bit sceptical. Are they going to do it? But they've certainly got a manager that's capable. But sometimes you see managers go to these clubs. It doesn't matter how big the reputation is. Some managers can't cope at the smaller clubs, and it doesn't work out. There's not many managers who go to smaller clubs and achieve. It's actually quite hard. And sometimes it's easy to go to a bigger club and achieve. So it's just that's just the way it goes. So I think time will tell. But certainly got a manager of pedigree, made loads of investment in the transfer window. It's got to be exciting times.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest issue with Pellegrini is if he can actually, get that cultural change at the club. Because West Ham, there's been, like you say, so much internal, underlying sort of mis-ease at the club. A lot of stuff going on. Can he eradicate that and cut that sort of cancer out and actually get a positive vibe going? That's going to be his biggest job in my book.
He comes across to me like, he reminds me of Fabio Capello. I'm wondering, is he a slightly nicer Fabio Capello? He definitely comes across an authoritarian, but I think that's pure to do with age, and it's hard to build rapport with him sometimes because of the language. He's definitely got better English than when he first came to the Premier League. And I sometimes always doubt that because it's hard to build the rapport, so it's hard to know what the manager's like. But he certainly, the players seem to like him. So it'll be it's interesting for West Ham. I think it's interesting times. But moving on to another London club, there's been lots of activity. Arsenal like Liverpool, haven't invested as heavily as Liverpool in terms of value of money, but they've gone out and done what Liverpool have in the sense that they've bought players in the positions they need. And the fans have desperately been asking for all of these positions: a centre back, a centre midfield, like a defensive midfielder, a goalkeeper. These are the three positions we've been desperately wanting for years under Wenger. And the manager's come in, and 5 minutes later he signed 3 players in those positions. So they were like his first 3 signings. So for Arsenal, it's exciting in that they've made the signings for the positions, but I seriously question, are these players good enough? And like with Liverpool, I think Liverpool, for me on paper, have got some better quality players. I think for Arsenal, I'm questioning the quality. Are they better than what we've got? Maybe, probably, but does that make them good enough to be at Arsenal and to elevate Arsenal to where Arsenal need to be, which is getting that top 4? And I don't know. I don't think they are. And all of the pundits, if you look at what everyone's saying, and I'm one of them, that I don't think they're going to get in the top 4 this season. I don't think they're good enough. The signings they've made aren't good enough to get them into that top 4. I don't think they're the missing ingredients to get us to elevate us to that point. But he's signed the right players in the right positions. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I feel like the signings are a lot about his philosophy. I think where Wenger had his way, which is well documented. I feel like new manager comes in and he has a whole different view of the way football's played, and these players will help his view. But will it be enough in this transitional period to keep up with the likes of City, Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea? Those teams they've got to bridge. So that's where the question lies with a lot of Arsenal fans and the football world in general. Are they good enough to make the jump? Because there's certain players in that Arsenal squad who can do amazing things. Can they do it the way the new manager wants them to do it?
It's just and also as a collective, is their best 11, regardless of who they are they good enough to go and get in the top 4? I don't think on paper they are. I think they have the potential. I wouldn't rule them out completely. I think they might be a bit of they could be a bit of a sleeping giant, in that they might surprise some teams this year if they have a great season. But I don't think before the Premier League starts that I wouldn't, if I was the bookies, I wouldn't be putting, the odds are probably pretty good on, not in favour of Arsenal getting in the top 4. And I'm not surprised, because again, they needed a goalie. What have they got? The 4th choice German goalie, the 3rd choice German goalie? Why didn't they get the number 1
German goalies are brilliant.
No, I know that. I know, but
they've churned some wonderful
ones
out.
No, they do, but you question. It's also. I'm not saying he's not going to be good, but it's again, we've gone and signed a South American player. These players traditionally struggle in the Premier League. Literally struggle. There's very rare. There's not many South American players, and the ones that have done well are like some of the best players in the world.
Sure.
Right? So on average, your average South American players struggle in the Premier League, and we've even seen some good ones struggle. So I just think it's a gamble when you start trying to sign players from South America. They're not even like the best of the best. I wouldn't put Torreira in that elite. He's not. No one else was really after him. He's been spoken about in the European market, but he's not a player that lots of clubs are after. He's been spoken about as a good player, a goodish player, up-and-coming player, but he's not someone that loads of clubs are trying to get. I question whether he's going to settle and get into that team and really be the player he is. But I think that's here and there. I think he's bought the right positions, which is a positive. It's a massive positive step forward. But I doubt is that best 11 still going to be good enough to get in the top 4. I don't think it is. I think they're going to have the season of their life and rely on other clubs like the Tottenhams or not so much Liverpool, but Man United perhaps not quite performing this year, and Arsenal really performing for Arsenal to get in that top 4.
Yeah,
they're definitely just not per se going to challenge for the top 4.
My thing is, over 38 games, can they keep that first 11, the best first 11 fit? And when the injuries come, because they probably will come, who
is it good enough?
Is it good enough? Is the squad good enough to hold up and keep to the philosophy that the new fellas come in and set? Because that's a massive change at Arsenal this season.
I think so. I mean, the other clubs, like you look at City. We probably should end on the Manchester clubs. They're two of the biggest clubs in the Premier League. Often have dominated the league tables, not just in Premier League table, but also in the spending league tables. Interestingly, this summer they've not dominated either of the transfers that have gone. However, City have made a marquee signing in Mahrez from Leicester, which seemed to go on the longest transfer in history.
Yeah,
it dragged on for 2 years, I think. I was actually quite surprised he went, but I'm still don't see how. Personally, can't see where he fits into that team. I don't think he's going to just walk into that team. He definitely makes competition for places, but I don't see the fit. All the time that City was sort of talking about getting him, I never quite saw it. I just thought he's a good player, but I doubt whether he's good enough to go and play for Man United, go and play for City, go and play for Liverpool. I mean, I'm not saying he's not, but but for City, I'm surprised City bought him. If he went to Arsenal or even Liverpool, and it's no disrespect to Liverpool or Arsenal, I kind of could have seen it. But at City, I was surprised because they've got quite a good midfield. And the way they play, I don't see where he lives in that system. But he certainly will help people compete for places.
No, I hear you because I would think of him being quite a languid player, not someone who necessarily works that hard. He seems to stroll around the pitch a little bit, and I think what we know of Pep is that he wants players with intensity and drive and vigour, and he doesn't necessarily fit me as a Pep player. I can see him, funny enough, maybe slipping into that midfield three. Like where Silva is not at the peak of his powers. I can see him sort of being a replacement for Silva, perhaps. Maybe not doing a lot of work on the wing. Maybe being more central.
Yeah.
And but yeah, still one which you think, not so sure.
Yeah.
But we shall see about that.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, it's
They got Mendy back, haven't they? Sorry to interrupt. Mendy back, the left back out for the whole season. He was outstanding for Monaco in that Champions League run. Injured within the first 2 games last year, out for the season. He comes back. Suddenly they've got like a new player. He was a real force.
He was. I mean, it's interesting that City haven't really made any more investment because I find that strange because over the years City have bought a lot of players and we know they've got a big squad. We know they've got a quality squad. But I still find it interesting that they've not made any signings other than Miraz, and he's not a player they're not in short supply of midfielders. But I'm surprised there's not been 1 or 2 more.
Sure.
Purely on sometimes when you win the Premier League, it's very hard to retain it. In fact, it doesn't happen very often. It's actually not common for the team to go and win it again.
No.
And it doesn't matter how well or how they dominated last year. That's out the window. They will not repeat what they did last year. And even if they went on and won the Premier League, they will not dominate like they did this year or in the last season. It won't go down that way. So I'm surprised they've not made a couple more signings purely on the basis to, like you said at Tottenham, having someone to push Harry Kane. You know, I'm not saying they don't have competition, but it keeps it fresh. It keeps people, I think, invigorated that the club's moving forward, the club's trying to still be exciting. And I think if you were a City fan, I think you would have liked a marquee signing. You know, why haven't they, you know, under Pep, he's been there now long enough where I was almost at one point thinking, are they going to sign Ronaldo? Like, because that would have been a coup. Like, you know, bringing him back to Manchester, but to City. I'm not saying he would have come, but and maybe he isn't the sort of player Pep wants. But if you're a City fan, you got to be thinking. Like at one point they were talking about Messi coming. You know, we know that's probably not going to never happen. But if you're a City fan, you're thinking, who are we going to sign? Are we going to sign Neymar? You know, are we going to? Do you know what I mean? Are we going to go and buy that player?
I see where you're going with this, and I totally get what you mean. I think the sheer brilliance of Pep's coaching, though, with his ability to improve players, and I think he's done a great job improving a lot of the, you know, youth players, and he's got them sort of really excelling and exceeding their expectation, and we're seeing the emergence of some young players coming through, like Phil Foden, for example, who's been sort of labelled in that sort of Scholes mould, and I feel like, you know, he's got a bit more of a master plan in terms of just improving players. Like we saw Fabian Delph playing left back last year. He won't play there this year. He'll be more central. There's another player who's going to come into that fold. But in terms of what you're saying about that marquee
big player, like, you know,
I think upon winning the league,
they've won the league. Go and buy a big player.
I think it would have been great for the fans of football in general, especially the City fans, if they went out and, you know, looked at the Pablo Diablas and, you know, Ronaldos and, you know, players who are
that will help them go and win the Premier League, the Champions League.
Next level.
You know, Champions League. You know, So I think for a City fan, you're going to be disappointed with the summer transfer dealings. I would be, given the stature, the size, the spending power. I think they need a marquee signing.
I think someone had to go if they did do that. Like someone like Sergio Aguero, I thought he might have gone this season. Fair enough in the pre-season, and to make room for that marquee player. But I think, well, clearly Pep has not gone down the road. He's kept faith in Sergio Aguero, thinking he can go on again.
Yeah, I think it might be a mistake. I think City. I think it's a mistake. I think if you're a City fan, you're disappointed. I don't think you're doing cartwheels that they've signed Miraz from Leicester. I think they're thinking, why aren't we getting Neymar? That's the level of player we should be trying to sign, not Miraz from Leicester.